Great. So my name is Ross Yelsey. I'm an associate director of admission and financial aid here at Columbia Journalism School, and I'm really happy to have you all here today for this conversation about our largest program, our kind of most long-standing program at Columbia Journalism School, the Master of Science program. We're going to talk about the full-time program today, and this is again is our largest program, and it's a program that if you're watching this live right now, if you're going to watch the recording in the next few days, you should know it's a great time to be talking with us because we have about 2 months still until our deadline to apply for this program. So there's plenty of time to do further research, chat with our admissions team, talk to other people at the school, and to put together a really good application based on what you learn from our faculty and from our alums today, and from other conversations we'll be hosting in the next few weeks as well. So again, a great time to kind of check in with us and learn more about this program, which definitely brings in the most students from all over the U.S. and all over the world to study journalism in New York City. I'm really happy to have Dulin Tu, Dean of Academic Affairs here and an alum of the MS program himself, and a professor here, and George Miller, also an alum of the MS program and Associate Dean of Academic Affairs here at the Journalism School, to talk with us, as well as a recent alum, Tamia Fowlkes, who's a reporter now at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and was a member of the class of 2023, so just a couple years ago, was walking around the halls here in Pulitzer Hall. But I thought I'd start from kind of a macro kind of a scale, kind of big question, just because I was mentioning earlier, I was at a career fair the other day in person, and someone was looking in our brochure at our programs and saw Master of Science, and was just kind of looking through it and was wondering, Master of Science, is that a scientific degree? What is this program about? And I know some people have already started their app, they've gone to sessions, they know kind of about this program, and some people joining us right now are kind of fresh to this whole thing, just learning about what we offer at the school. And maybe, Duke, could you say a little bit about what this program is and who it might be for?
Yeah, I welcome everyone. First of all, Daniela and Amy, you automatically get into the program because your cameras are on. So congratulations. We'll see you next fall. Um, but no, so no, this is not, I don't, frankly, when I was a student here, I don't know why this is an MS. It doesn't matter. My point being is we have a couple of programs, the one's an MS and one's an MA. That the names don't actually matter. What you have to understand is basically the MS is for, folks who are looking to really get a strong foundation in journalism, reporting specifically, and producing and writing. And then our MA program, which probably most of you don't know about and haven't signed up for, but just the distinction is that it's for a different cohort, maybe someone who's had more experience in journalism that wants to specialize. So MSMA doesn't matter if it's science or arts. What does matter is that this is the place for people who really want to get the really foundational skills into becoming, a world-class, high-performing reporter.
Great. And for people who maybe are just in an undergraduate program right now, or just recently completed one, or are thinking about more of an academic kind of school experience, how does ours differ than one that maybe has, oh, there's midterms, there's a final paper at the end of the semester, you can kind of map out your syllabus pretty easily. How does like this kind of hands-on education maybe differ from what people have been used to when it comes to academic life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's very, and I didn't understand this until I, taught here for a long time and really because I didn't get an undergrad in journalism. I only have my master's in journalism. So the graduate education is very different than an undergraduate education. This is very this is a very professional program. What that means is that you're going to learn the how to be a professional journalist. There is, there's law, there's ethics, those kind of programs, but it's not at all theoretical. There is some theory in the classroom where we talk about, what is a story and what's the angle of the story and what is kind of or even all the way to the kind of the business considerations of a story. But most of your time, actually, to be honest, most of your learning happens outside of the classroom when you are in the field reporting. So that's the significant difference between undergrad and graduate studies in journalism. And George, I want to know if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I think, like Dew says, once you arrive in August, you will start running around the city regularly, often a few times per week. And what happens in the classroom is really, almost what you would experience in a newsroom. Your faculty members, your teachers are going to wind up serving as your editors of sorts. And so it's very real life, very hands-on, very, running around town and hitting the pavements, and it's great fun. It's very different from a traditional academic experience. You do research, but all that research is really in purpose of doing journalism, which is about finding stories digging through archival information, interviewing a lot of folks, and then putting it all together. No citations like you would do in a midterm exam or a paper or something like that. It's a very hands-on process.
And then for people who maybe are looking around on our website or are kind of looking for majors within this program, one thing we don't really have, people ask, can I, broadcast major? Can I get a magazine major? Can I do an audio major? Do you have to declare a major in this program? And if not, why do we have this more kind of holistic, kind of flexible curriculum in place?
George and I both we went through the era where we did have those majors. Those are what we call concentrations. I was a broadcast concentrator. George, what were you? If you remember?
Magazines.
Magazine. So back in the day, you checked a box and you were like newspaper, magazine, broadcast, and even within broadcast, you could be radio or television. Obviously, I don't know about you guys. That's not how I consume my journalism anymore. I don't go, I'm going to get some TV journalism today, right? I'm going to get some magazine. I just get journalism, right? And it's often fed through my phone. So that's one consideration where a journalist does, you may work at a television station, but you will end up writing for the website, right? Or you may, you know, uh, do a print story for the AP that gets adapted to be a documentary. So the thing about our curriculum is that it's rooted in reporting, which cuts across all media. You to be a good television reporter, documentarian, podcaster, writer, you have to be a good reporter. And so that's the first thing. But what we wanted to give students, because it's such a short program, the choice to experiment. If you know what you want to do and you want to be a podcaster and you come in, that's fantastic. But in reality, most people think they know or they don't know, and they come in and they quickly realize it's something else. And so we wanted to build in that flexibility. Whereas when George and I went, we had to tick that box, and that was the path you went on. So that's the first part why we don't have majors. That said, within that flex that kind of structure, if you do want to do podcasting, you could take all the podcasting classes you can fit into your schedule, right? So you can be in either or. What we wanted to remove is that kind of requirement. And frankly, even if you apply today and have something in mind today, October 17th, I can promise you by August of next year, things will have changed for most of you. And so we want to have that flexibility for before and during the program.
Yeah, and if people see, they have a strong interest, but we don't necessarily have a formal program in that, say, sports journalism or whether it's, podcasting, as you mentioned, there are going to be classes in the MS, even if there's not kind of an advertised track in that. So if you have, a specific subject or a medium you want to get a lot of training in, we should have that under the umbrella of the MS. That's correct.
Mhm. Yeah, many of you, if you're coming from an undergrad, you may have done those programs that allow you to kind of form your own minor or something like that. It's a bit like that. You select the classes and you kind of develop the curriculum you want. We have core classes you have to take, but beyond that, you decide.
Great. And Tamia, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to Columbia? What were you doing before you came here, and how did you decide that this particular program at Columbia, the MS program, was the right fit for what you wanted to do?
Definitely. So I came to Columbia right out of undergrad. Before going to school or going to graduate school, I was at the University of Wisconsin-Madison as a journalism and political science major. I had done a handful of journalism internships before going to Columbia, so I knew I wanted to pursue journalism. I was always interested in like politics and democracy coverage, but I grew up in Wisconsin and had gone to grad school or undergrad in Wisconsin, so I wanted to kind of report in a different environment. And I always knew I wanted to be in New York. I had for a long time really admired the work of a lot of the professors at Columbia and had seen the work of alumni as well and was really inspired by that. And so that was kind of a driving factor for me. I think I had always been aware of this program since I had been kind of really young. I think when I was 13, I told my parents I wanted to go to Columbia Journalism School, and I don't even think I understood what that meant or like what that would mean contextually in my life. But it had always been something I kept my eye on in undergrad, and I always had felt like I was someone who was looking to learn more. No matter how many experiences I got, I was like, well, I feel like I could learn more in this area of journalism, or I could try to be a better writer in this capacity. And so that was kind of what I went into school looking to gain. And I think that the school experience definitely offered me that. I came into school and I did quite a lot of disability coverage. I did a lot of healthcare and climate reporting. things that I had never really done before, but just got really experimental with. I took podcast, video, magazine classes. Du was one of my professors. I got to kind of learn how to reconstruct the way that I thought about video storytelling as well in this program. And now I write for a print publication, but do like TikToks and long form video for our paper sometimes as well. And I think that the best part about grad school is that you're learning in an environment where there's not necessarily as much pressure to be perfect because your work's maybe not being viewed by hundreds of thousands of people, but there is a pressure to correct and improve, every time that you take a swing at telling a certain type of story. So I think that was my favorite part of going to grad school was just being challenged in a new way and really getting the opportunity to be experimental with my work. So that was my favorite part about it. That was the reason why I decided to apply because I think there's never enough opportunities in life to just say like, let me learn to do something new.
Can I just jump on that? And to me, I'm you know, despite the horrors I put you through, I'm glad you can come back and speak kindly about the school. But that's the exact attitude we're looking for. This idea of experimentation that we're talking about before, and that's why our curriculum the way it is. Journalism right now is you're going to hear a couple things, and maybe more than a couple things, but a lot of people in your life might be like, "Oh my God, journalism! Why would you do that?" Or journalism, can you get a job in that? Or a variety of questions of why you do it, right? And so the counter to that is it's never been more exciting to be a journalist. To me, you just wrote you work at where and you do the TikTok like that's like 12 jobs that didn't exist when George and I had, went out of graduated from the school. And actually, here's the dirty little secret. Your bosses are going to be looking to you to try to figure out the next generation of storytelling. And to me, I don't know if, if that's kind of fair to say, but I think, when George and I graduated, we landed in the job and the job was the job. And right now, this generation gets to kind of redefine the job a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, when I came to school, I'm an investigative reporter right now, and that is not something I ever necessarily imagined myself falling into as well, because it seems kind of like an intimidating job to have or an intimidating title to take on. I think that being at Columbia also just showed me the depth of the reporting I was able to do. We sometimes would do projects that would span months or the duration of most of your year at school. When you work on your master's project, it's like either a 5,000 word project that you'll work on throughout like 2 semesters, or you could do a documentary, or you could do a long form podcast. And it really just showed me skills that I honestly didn't think that I was capable of doing beforehand. For me, grad school was kind of like a confidence affirming thing as well. If you ever have felt like, you just like might not be able to do something, I think this experience will definitely push you to know that you can. So I think that is the best thing about the experience. I also did, again, like walk into the newsroom that I'm in now. And oftentimes I will like pitch many stories to my editors, and they'll say like, "Oh, we didn't have someone working on that story," or, "Oh, that's a really great idea. Would you mind like doing a video to go with it as well?" And that's because I've shown them that I have these skills and I'm really interested in continuing to build upon them. And I think you just have more flexibility that way after school.
And now I'm going to share in a moment a visual of our curriculum so people can get a better sense on what this experience really looks like semester by semester over the 2 semesters. But before that, Tamia, before I do that, I thought I'd just follow up on a question that Du and George answered really well, but get your perspective on how this experience when you jumped into the MS program, how did that feel different than what you'd experienced as like in an undergrad situation in terms of kind of what your day-to-day life was like?
Yeah, I just think, honestly, by nature of being an undergrad, I was just younger and a little bit more afraid sometimes to take on bigger stories. I think at Columbia, I was taking every single opportunity I possibly could to go to press conferences or talk with public officials or just ask tougher questions, because I knew that I could. So I think that that was the difference for me. I also worked on a lot bigger projects when I was in grad school. So I think in undergrad, we would get an assignment and they'd be like, go out and cover this voter registration event, have something by the end of the day. And that would kind of be the end. When you're in grad school, if you do one story, it's very likely that you'll want to keep up with those people that you talked to in a community that you visited or at a certain office that you went to, and they might have introduced you to a new idea or presented you some data that you want to dive into a little bit more. I just think that there's more opportunity to explore and to be more reflective about the work that you're doing. So that's a great opportunity too. You're not only building community within the school, but you're getting to know New York City and all the different things that it has to offer in terms of storytelling opportunities.
And how was it? I know a lot of our students come from all over the US and all over the world, really. So we have people who have never really spent time in New York, never been here before they started classes here in some cases. What's it like actually getting into journalism here in this, major world capital?
Yeah, I think it's great. Honestly, like the people who might not even be from the States are sometimes the ones who have the best ideas because they have really fresh eyes about these topics. So if you're moving into this environment from a different place, I think it can be a real advantage. There are things that'll be interesting to you that might not have caught other people's eye. I have friends who had like worked in theater spaces or who worked in healthcare before coming to school or worked in finance, and they were pulling tips and ideas from their own previous experiences. And I think everyone has something like that to offer. So if you have some type of niche interest that you want to follow up on and see if there's a New York angle, there definitely probably is. And that's always a great way to find good stories too.
Great advice. So now we will take a look at the curriculum itself. One second here. It's where you get to see how messy my desktop is sometimes, but hopefully you don't get to. There we go. Good. So we'll go through a few visuals and help just get a better sense because we get a lot of questions every year about kind of what, semester by semester this looks like, what you actually get to do in the MS program. So this visualization is a great guide to that. And I thought, George and Du, if you wanted to talk a little bit, not maybe in granular detail about the curriculum, talk a bit about how kind of skills get built over these 2 semesters to kind of get the fundamentals and then get to explore different avenues when it comes to professional development in different mediums and subjects.
George, you want to take this one? I think you designed this grid, so you should talk about it.
Sure. So, I mean, I think we think about the education across 3 different ways. We give you exposure to ideas, we give you foundational skills, and then we try to provide time when you can develop your particular path, your particular expertise. And so during the fall semester, we do a combination of exposure and foundations. You'll take a class called Journalism Now, which is a weekly seminar where we bring in people to come and speak to you. It's pretty great. It's a large lecture hall experience, but you can come down and talk to the folks afterward. The core of your fall semester really is built around reporting, and it's sort of platform agnostic. You learn how to gather information. We don't get into the different formats for storytelling. You really wind up writing a lot at that point, but it's the foundation of everything that you do. If you wind up going into audio, video, data, photography, or anything else, you learn how to gather the information and what are the foundations there, verifying information, doing the basics of all those things. You'll take investigative techniques, which is a little bit more of the advanced searching. You'll learn how to do FOIA and things like that. And then during the first half of the semester, you will also take either law or ethics, again, to give you that foundational experience so that you've got the grounding to be able to do that work. In the second half, we start to branch out a little bit. We go into the written word portion, which allows you to take the reporting, which you've already been writing on, but really to focus on the writing and focus on the storytelling. And then the second half, the other half of the second half is about the other side of presentation, which is our image and sound classes. And you'll take one of the image and sound options, which includes data, video, audio, or photojournalism. And then you'll also take the law or ethics class, whichever you didn't take in the first half. In the middle of the fall semester, you will be assigned a master's advisor, and you will start thinking about what your project will be. And you'll start meeting with your master's project advisor right about now. We just assigned the advisors last week, and so most of our students are just now meeting with their advisors this week and next week, just getting their legs underneath them. They'll talk for the next month or so and really start to map out what their projects will be. They'll put together a reporting plan, much of which will be done during the winter break and into January. And then during the second half of your time here, during the spring semester, you'll take 2 seminar and production classes. Our seminar classes they meet once a week for 3 hours, and they tend to be topical. So you'll do things like covering religion, sports. We have everything from narrative writing, magazine writing, and a whole world of options. And you'll also take a production class. The production classes tend to be a city newsroom, which is a multimedia class, video newsroom, which tends to be a more traditional broadcast television approach, multimedia storytelling, which Du teaches, which kind of runs the gamut. And so you'll find that combination, a seminar class that will help you develop that expertise, and a production class that helps you develop those skills, and then you put them all together. Also, in the spring semester, you will take a history class and you'll take a business class. You'll take the history one half of the semester, and you'll take the business of journalism during the second half, both of which probably sound really boring. I teach the business class, and it's the best class ever, because we not only talk about how we got to this point in journalism and all those difficulties that everybody talks about, but we also talk about how to surpass them and how to build and how to think entrepreneurially. Entrepreneurially, whether you are working in a news organization, like Tamia is talking about, or entrepreneurially, as in building your own news organizations. And then during the spring semester, you'll also wrap up your master's project, and then you graduate, and it all goes so fast.
Very true. And in terms of the options, so like in the written word, for that particular module in the fall, there's usually at least like 20 different, subject areas of writing. So you'll have some choices to kind of focus in on things that either you like or things you might want to try out that you've never done before. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct. We do writing for audio, writing for video. We've got editing. We've got a whole bunch of narrative writing classes, long form classes. I think we actually offer about 17 this semester. Yeah.
Cool. And for the spring, as you mentioned, there's a lot of choices for the seminar and productions, and people won't, have the full menu in front of them until probably the kind of the end of the fall semester. We'll kind of finalize that, and then there'll be a lot of choices in terms of, pursuing things that you knew you wanted to do when you got here, or maybe new things that you've discovered kind of as you've gone through the program.
Yep.
Great. And Tamia, looking back on this, we don't have to go through every class module, but are there certain classes or experiences that you look back on now that were particularly memorable and valuable, in the MS program?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the memories like come rushing back when I look at this schedule, but I think some of my favorite classes that I took were the ones in areas of experience that I didn't necessarily have before. So I mentioned earlier that I took a video reporting class and we were doing a little bit longer form stories than I was used to. I had like interned for a broadcast news organization when I was in college, but had never made a story that was longer than like 2 to 3 minutes. So that was a really great experience. One of my favorite classes was a climate reporting course that I took. It was a magazine journalism class. I helped just because I have a lot of kind of editing and Photoshop experience. I helped put together our magazine, I helped design our website, and then I wrote like a 3,500 word story for that class. So, oh yeah, Ross has it. And so I think that that was a really great experience too. It was all about kind of taking every opportunity that I could to learn something new. I was not very sciencey when I was in undergrad, so healthcare reporting and climate reporting were two things that really intimidated me, and I was really seeking to find a way to explore those things in a safe environment where my thoughts and my ideas could be both nurtured, but I could also build my writing ability. And so I think that courses like that really helped me to break through some own barriers that I had set for myself because at the end of the day, like all reporting is kind of very similar. It's about finding the documents, finding good sources, and then writing it in a thoughtful way. And I think you are all probably very capable of that, but having a professor who can guide you in the right direction is really beneficial. So I think those are some of my favorite courses that I was able to take, but the whole semester, both semesters are really helpful in just building your skills and trying to navigate where you want to land in the industry.
Great. And in terms of the grading, one thing I should mention, if people didn't know this, is that the grading system for the whole program is pass-fail. So there's not a kind of a A, B, C, D kind of grading scale here. Or George, do you want to mention just kind of how that may help people explore some new areas and the kind of the way that we approach, what looks like success here at the school?
Yeah, so we're pass fail. So what does that mean? It means a couple of things. It means there's less pressure to think about, am I going to get a B minus or a B or an A minus versus a B plus? First of all, I challenge anyone to tell me what B plus journalism looks like compared to A minus journalism, right? So when you take that off the table, it allows you to be really free about worrying about the craft instead of the weird academic negotiations that we all do for grades, right? You guys, right, if you're in undergrad, you know exactly what I mean, right? Quiz, and then do I raise my hand more for participation? And oh my God, should I go to 3 extra office hours to impress my professor, right? So we take that all off the table intentionally because we're so focused on the craft. Now, can you fail? Absolutely, right? You don't do your work, you don't do your or things like those are such extremes. And when you take the extremes off the table, most people do just fine, right? And so that I think, and I'd love George's thoughts, but just like from a pedagogic level, when you take off the ABCDs of the thing, it just allows you to focus on the work as opposed to the things around the work, like that. George?
Yeah, and I think this is another thing that distinguishes us from your undergrad experiences because the way that we'll work with you, you almost can't fail. It's possible, and people fail. It happens, but you wind up working with your faculty so closely that you write and revise and write and revise. You craft video and you edit it, and you work with all the people in your classes. You work with your partners. You work with your faculty members. We also have a lot of support systems throughout the institution. We have a writing center. We have ESL tutors. We have a person who works with students on grammar and technical issues. We have an in-house person who works with everybody on editing video. And so there's a lot of support systems that are built in so that if you're struggling in any of your classes, your teacher, your professor will either spend more time with you or will send you off to other resources and find that support for you. The way that I always say is that students all come in at various levels. Most people will have a little bit of understanding of journalism. Some will have college media experience. Some will have internships, and some will have work experience. And so you'll see people who arrive here with, they'll arrive at a 1, 2, 3, or 4 level, and our job is to get them to a 10. And so we will work with you all and find the support systems to ultimately get you to a 10 so that when you graduate in May, you are strong, confident, and capable.
Great. And Tamia, as you might have remembered, I have an office right here off the main lobby, so I'm always, out and about in the lobby and the steps in front of the building. I usually will take a few photos here and there of like the groups of students socializing and meeting. So I have a couple of those I had kind of in my library here, and I thought while I looked back at those, when we look back at those, I'd ask you a little bit more about what it's like to be just a member of this community here. What's the social life like? What's the student community like at the J School? And here's a few photos just of.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, this is, my batch of friends from when I was in J school. I still talk to many of my friends from Columbia almost every single day. I was in New York about 2 weeks ago and like saw a Broadway show with some friends and went to dinner, and we all keep in touch. We send each other story drafts. We like help each other out through navigating this industry, and that's one of my favorite parts about this community is that, even among my class, we have a 200-person group chat. We always are like updating and asking questions about sources and if people can connect us to certain, political figures that we're trying to reach in this election season, things like that, in which we're all covering and working on fairly actively. So I think it's a very supportive community. Even though people are coming from all around the world, you'll find a lot of similarities and commonly shared experiences and interests with people from all over the place. This is a handful of friends from my first reporting class. So I really love my Columbia community. It's among like some of the closest friends that I've gotten to make in my 20s, honestly. I'm sure a lot of you maybe were in college during the COVID-19 pandemic or even just spent a lot of time at home. This was one of the, first opportunities I had to be in a large group of people again and learn together. So I feel like it was really beneficial in that way as well. You'll just make friends that you'll connect with for life and people that will always understand kind of what you're going through, because in this industry we all kind of face the same kind of thing. So it was really great to be with this group of people.
Yeah, thanks. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, both Du and George are alums of the MS program. And so I wanted to ask them a little bit about just skills that they feel like were the most important they gained during their student experience. And then to also talk a little bit about how the skills you gain here, no matter kind of what you're going to be doing afterwards, whether it's journalism, reporting like Tamia's doing, or other types of profession, how these skills can be valuable throughout your life.
Um, George, you want to take it? I'll take it, and I'll take it.
Sure. Um, when I was a student here, I did a little bit of everything. I had been working as a photojournalist prior to arriving here and wanted to transition into magazine writing. And so that's what I really focused on. I wound up walking away with skills in everything, words, images, sound, video. And I wound up going back. I was a photojournalist for a while. I became a city desk reporter for a long time. I was a newspaper columnist. I published a magazine. I ran a video production company and did a little bit of everything along the way. What I found was the ultimate thing that I took away from the grad school that I still think about every day is when I was here, I was thinking about what are the things that I need to know in order to get a job upon graduation. And that was kind of, job number one. But also at the same time, everybody is constantly talking about this is the journalism world now. It's evolving, it's changing, and these are the things you need to think about as you're going into the future. And all of those things, those two things combined, thinking about the immediate upon graduation and then thinking about the long term, it really instilled this kind of thought process of constant leadership. And I think you'll find that when you go into newsrooms across the country and around the world, you will find that the Columbia journalism grads are running things. And so that's my ultimate takeaway. We'll give you the skills to help you have pretty amazing careers. And you will find that your trajectory will skyrocket because of the community that you're surrounded by, the experiences that you'll have here, the things that you'll learn, and really the thought process that I think we instill.
Yeah, and if I just want to add to that, I think there's been a kind of a sea change in looking at the value of a journalism degree, right? If we're going to keep it completely real, it's like it's a big consideration. It's a year of your life. It's a lot of money, right? And it's like, where is this going to lead me? And so, I think, and also, where's it going to lead me in a time that I keep on reading that, is journalism is in flux. So everything that George just said is so true. You're 4 years out, you're gonna be a Tamia who's gonna see Kamala Harris later, maybe, right? Or Barack Obama, like 4 years out of school like that's gonna happen, right? So we have a cohort of people who come in and they're gonna learn the journalism skills, and they're going to get to the places that they want to get to. They're going to make films and they're going to work on podcasts, all that kind of stuff. And if you want to do that, that's going to happen. Um, but on the other hand, journalism skills are not just applicable for journalism, right? And so what are journalism skills? But at the end of the day, we find information, right? We find information in ways that other people can't. You really can't, right? We verify information, right? In a world increasingly where has become increasingly difficult to figure out what's true and what's not, that's what we teach you to do. We teach you how to, contextualize that information, meaning like, I just did all this research. How can I make someone understand this, right? We'll make you do that, and then we'll teach you how to do that quickly and in multi forms. You could write and you could do audio, you can do video. The reason I say this is about that. That's independent of the actual industry of journalism. So it's twofold here. You come here and you want to be, a future leader in journalism, you're going to get it. But also, there's going to be jobs that in a few years exist that don't exist now, right? Like, and we've seen that over the last few years with the way technology is. There's going to be jobs that just, George and I wouldn't even dream of when we were students. So what that means is, though, all those jobs are going to have one common denominator: is the skills that we teach you here. Everything I listed: finding information quickly, verifying information, learning how to talk to people, learning how to write clearly, cogently, quickly, right? All those skills. So I really want to highlight that if you're trying to like, well, I don't know what I want to do. Well, none of us really, I'm a middle-aged man. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, right? But the reality is, like, all these skills that we give you open up a lot of doors in trying to figuring out that. So I wanted to underscore that point.
That's a great point. And I thought I'd just ask too, since people are probably wondering, how does the school keep up with the changes that are happening in terms of what people should be knowing about, whether it's subjects or technology? I know there's a lot of interest at our school currently in AI. Tamia was talking about working on a climate magazine, so climate change is a big issue. How are some ways we're really, really connected with what's going on right now here?
Okay, so look, I'm going to flex for a second here. We have the best faculty in the world, so that's how we keep ahead of things, right? I can fairly say that. I deeply love and respect all of our peer institutions, all the other schools. Like we're good friends with them, but we have the best here. And what the best means is that our faculty day in day out are achieving at a high level, right? They're the names out there. Oh my God, our dean Jelani Cobb is a celebrity in of himself, right? And so we have people who are doing the thing in real time, and you're going to be in the presence of the thing. And so when you have people who are out there day in and day out, week in and weekend out, doing journalism, they can't help but know what is changing in journalism. So they go out, they do their reporting, they produce their stories, they write their stories, they do all that, and then when they come back, it's you get that direct education. And again, no disrespect to our other institutions, you're not going to get the same type of faculty, and so we're really proud of that, and I'm not ashamed about bragging of that. And so if you could, and many of you will be weighing, like, after you get the am I going to go to school or not, you might be weighing between schools. I mean, that's the thing. You're going to spend a year, and if do you want to spend your year with the best or not? I think that's the ultimate question you have to ask.
Thanks. And Tamia, we've already talked a bit about your current work, but can you talk a bit more about what you do day to day as a public investigator reporter at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel? What has that work been like, and what are some of the skills that you've definitely been using that you developed here at the school?
Definitely. Yeah, like Ross said, I'm a public investigator at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. It was actually kind of a newer position that was kind of reintroduced to our newsroom. It was something that they had back in the early 2000s, and they brought back with the hope of bringing me on as an investigative reporter. So I was really excited to take on that responsibility. My role generally focuses on fielding tips from community members about issues that they're dealing with, and then trying to get answers for them as to what the problem is or what wrongdoing exists within a certain situation. My most recent story is noted on the top of this is about a man who was trying to build a Hindu temple in one of our communities near Milwaukee and had a contractor drop out on him who had violated a few permit laws and didn't have the correct license to be operating a construction project in the first place. I did some stories last year about barriers to disability access, some kind of like backlogs in assisted mobility technology repair, people waiting months or years to get wheelchairs fixed or wheelchair elevators fixed. And, it kind of varies every single day. I covered the DNC and the RNC this summer. I jump in for politics reporting quite often. Last night, I went to a thing called Brat Ball. If you listen to Charlie XCX, I'm sure you know what Brat is. There was like a voter registration event that was centered around that album where people were there and there were drag queens and they were trying to mobilize young voters to get out and vote, and interview public officials, senators, politicians, things of that sort all the time. I profiled Chapel Roan last year when she came to Milwaukee and did a concert. It has been like very all over the place, but I think that's the best thing about journalism is that every day you can tackle a new story. I'm very interested in like arts and pop culture. So in addition to doing investigations, if there is a concert that I want to cover that our arts reporters aren't covering, I'll jump in there. And I think that's what it's all about. Ultimately, like you are in charge of bringing the ideas forward. Your editors can say yes or no, but there is no limit if you have the idea in the first place and you present it to someone to do. So that's my favorite part about the work that I get to do. It's both like a public service. I'm helping people get answers to really challenging questions or preventing wrongdoing and problems emerging in our community, but also I get to like tackle some of my own passion projects as well. And that is my favorite thing to do. So.
So Tamia, did you get the last Chapel
And I
Roan
guess for
interview?
for skills that I'm using from Columbia that have sorry.
Sorry, did you get the last Chapel Roan interview before she went into hiding?
No, but I mean I interviewed her in October of last year, so honestly she was like bubbling under. I don't think anybody really knew who she was yet when I introduced the idea to my editors. They were like, "Who is that?" And then I think the next month it was like a few days after her album came out, so it kind of skyrocketed from there. So I felt very lucky to be in the early stages of the Chaperone Renaissance that we're kind of living in right now. But yeah, I think, every day I'm tackling something different. But in terms of investigative reporting, as I mentioned earlier, it wasn't something that I felt like I had too vast of experience in. I had done one investigative reporting internship in college and then had done mostly daily and kind of general assignment reporting between then and grad school. So Columbia definitely prepared me to take on longer projects and also just informed me about what type of like documents I should be requesting, like public records. I hadn't had too much experience with that before. It just got me more confident in reaching out to agencies and asking what type of information they could offer to inform the reporting that I was doing. So I think that school just reframes your mind in how you tell a story, all the different places where you can look for ways to tell it. I think a a lot of the time we'll go to our sources and pray and hope that they can tell us every single detail that we need to tell a story, but there's really a lot of different places where you can find and fill your stories out, whether that be through documents or government agencies and things of that sort. So definitely learned a lot of that in school, and it's been very beneficial to me.
Great. And that makes me think of the fact that so we had two webinars recently for our two specializations that exist under the MS umbrella. Those are the ones in investigative journalism and in documentary journalism. So we do have two specialized programs for people who really want to focus in on one of those areas and know that when they're applying. But as Tamia has noted, she's doing all that great work now, investigative work, but didn't choose the specialization track, when she was applying, but went to the broader MS that they're talking about today. And George, could you talk a bit about how the MS program, even if you don't choose to make a specialization decision like in investigations or documentary, you can still get really great training, even if you don't know for sure that's the route you want to go on when you first come into the program in both those areas?
George?
We have everything here. And so you'll take an image and sound class, and so that will be your mandated class. You'll go into the spring semester with the ability to take photo, video, audio, or whatever your interest may be, data as well. And then along the way, we are constantly doing workshops. This year, we launched a new program called the Noon Block Workshops, where we are doing introductions to photo and video. We've been introducing audio. We'll continue doing that through with data in the coming weeks, and then we're going to go into topical issues. And so everything that you could possibly want to get from the program, we'll offer it at some point. And what we do is we communicate with our students to say, what's of interest to you and what should we be offering? We just talked to a few students over the past few weeks, and they really want to learn social media video. How do you prepare not just entertaining and not influencer style, but more informative news style TikToks and social media video for Instagram and things like that. And so I'm now talking to a handful of people about making that happen, and we'll probably do a series of workshops on that. And so we are constantly learning from our students about what their interests are. We're constantly talking to people in industry about how they're evolving, and then we're building programs around that. We also, in addition to your classes, we have several centers that exist in the building, and the Brown Institute here is on the Brown Institute and the Tao Center especially are on top of changes in journalism, innovation, digital technology, artificial intelligence, and things of that sort. And so we're constantly doing programming around all of that, and it's all accessible to you.
And I think sometimes in the admissions office here, we get questions from potential applicants being like, I'd like to apply to the documentary program and the investigative specialization and to the MS in data journalism. And sometimes the best answer for what they may be looking for is this MS program because it does offer training in different areas where you can get some data, some investigative skills, and some documentary filmmaking skills as well. So it does all kind of exist under here, especially if you're not sure you have one specific track you want to pursue. This lets you kind of explore and experiment with a lot of different areas of the profession. Well, great. So I thought now that we're getting towards 15 minutes left, we'll soon open this up, the chat, to some questions from our participants. But I thought I'd ask Tamia first for any advice you would just have for people who are thinking of applying, this cycle or maybe in a future cycle, about what to think about when you are thinking of preparing an application for grad school like this.
Definitely. I mean, one thing that I think is a great benefit, which I think is still true, is that the application is free this year. So if you have any apprehension about applying, I think the one thing I most often hear from people is that I didn't apply because I was too afraid or I didn't know if I would get accepted. And I think there is really no harm in putting the opportunity out there for yourself and just seeing what happens. I think I have a lot of friends who, again, had those same levels of apprehension or didn't exactly know if journalism was the right fit for them. One of my friends, Aaron, he told me that when he did his application essay, he like transcribed journal entries because he just didn't know like how to frame his personal essay. And he got in, and he's such a great reporter and a wonderful person. So I think that, any application, so long as it's reflective of you and why you like to tell stories or what you're most interested in reporting on and covering and learning, can be a strong application. People will call me all the time before they're like applying to jobs or applying to school and say like, what is the perfect formula for getting into this program or this internship? And I really don't think that that exists. You bring a really unique set of interests and reporting opportunities and abilities to the table. So I would say like self-confidence is the number one thing, and getting it done is the other thing that you have to do. I would try not to put too much pressure on yourself. Ultimately, the people who are reviewing your applications are all professors at this university for the most part, and they're looking for students who are willing to learn and seem like they could grow and thrive in the environment that we're in. So if anything, I would just try to not be too rigid about, the things that you want to cover. This is all about like learning and expanding your capacity as a reporter. So I think, any application can be good, but you just have to submit it first to get accepted. So that is the number one thing to do.
Great advice. And for Du and Georgia, as faculty who do read applications every cycle, we have a great thing about this program that, it is a place where people sometimes like Tamia have already done journalism, studied it, and are coming here. But a lot of people are coming from different educational and professional backgrounds into the MS program. And in all those cases, what are you looking for in terms of who might be a good fit for this type of program?
All right, I'm gonna give you a cheat code for your application. You guys ready? Do not start your essay with ever since I was a little kid. I remember holding a hairbrush to my face and pretending I was a TV reporter. Do not start your essay like that, right? What we want is someone who's really curious, right? And who has a unique vision about what what they report on and what they are interested in reporting on. Don't just tell me you want to be a storyteller. Tell us what you want to tell stories about. Does that make sense? Right. And so that's the thing. Oftentimes, like when I read applications, like I want to be a storyteller, I'm like, okay, we all do. That's great. But what about you is going to, what stories are you going to tell? And secondly, I would probably Google the word reporting before you write your essay and figure out what reporting actually means and integrate that into your story and reflect on what type of reporting you'd like to do here. Because really, I think I can speak for everyone. That's who we're looking for. Someone who's curious about specific things. Now, again, you don't have to be finite, it's like only interested in one thing, but what are the issues that are important to you and you think are important to kind of the public? Because we do journalism is in the public good, right? So that's the thing. And thirdly, what we're looking for is really kind of a breadth of life experience. We don't need you to have, you're at the beginning of your school career. What we're not looking for is, 17, internships at various radio stations. That's great if you have them, but we're just as equally interested in your life experience. What about you is interesting that will make you an interesting part of the kind of school population again. Those are my pro tips. Do not start off with a cliche article about how you've always wanted to be a storyteller. Tell us what you are actually interested. Look up what the definition of reporting is and make sure that we understand that you understand reporting. And the third part, tell us about yourself and what life experience you could bring into it. We do not ding you if you do not have, or we shouldn't ding you if you do not have journalism experience. The whole point of going here is to get the journalism experience. So those are the things I would focus on. And maybe George has some other thoughts.
Well, I just think I think the challenge is to show that you're curious, that you want to know more. And what we do as journalists is not just ask questions, but we also learn about things and then tell people about them. I think you need to go and explain why you want to learn about things and how you're going to assist people and how you want to follow the mission of what we do as journalists. And I think that's the most important thing, especially those of you who are going to be new to New York City. I mean, it can be a big and intimidating place, but it's actually an absolutely amazing place full of people from around the world. And while it can be intimidating because it's so large and the traffic, the transit system is so vast, I mean, it's really just a joy to get out at the other end of the subway and see the different worlds that exist around here. And wandering around and talking to people and seeing things and asking questions, even if it's just to yourself, why does that exist? What's that over there? And you make notes to yourself, and then you follow up when you get back to your computer and you start poking around. You have to have that innate desire to know why things are the way they are.
Great advice. So now I've opened up the chat for people who might have a question that they want to raise. Put that in the chat, but address it to me, Ross, the host, and I'll see which ones we can answer. I should say up front, if it's something very specific about your situation or about financing, we're going to have a lot of great conversations coming up. So join us at this Meet With Us link for things that are going to be more specific to your, case or about something a little bit more about the mechanics of admission. But anything about the MS program, about the student experience, the curriculum, please pose those now, and we see if we can raise a few of them. Oh, a question about the master's project, which we talked about a little bit, but in terms of subject matter, is there kind of a restriction on what people can report on for that? Or is there some sort of kind of top-down, you're going to do this type of story that you're going to get from your editor? How much kind of agency do you have in defining what your story will be?
So I'll tell you about our process. What we do is we'll send out a list of potential advisors to you, and the list of advisors gives you a little bit of background about who those people are, what kind of work they've done, and then you would actually ballot to work with one of those people. You actually, from number 1 through 8, you will vote for people that you want to work with, and then we assign you to work with one of those folks. You would then go to them and you'll start having meetings with them. Again, we just went through this process last week, and our students are just now starting to meet with their advisors. And this is the point where you say, this is what I'm interested in. Maybe in my reporting class, I came across this really interesting idea. I'm interested in pursuing this. I'd love to do it in this fashion. And then you walk through. The only real restrictions are we really suggest that you do things in New York City just because we want you to be able to talk to people, come back, write, put video together, capture that sound, put it together. And then sometimes you'll sit with your editor and your editor will say, this is great. You need to get more. And so you need to be able to go back out to those locations and catch up with those people. Sometimes you can do that via Zoom or by phone call, but a lot of times it really benefits by being able to see people in person, which means you need to have your subjects pretty close to you. Um, did I hit everything, Ross?
I think so. That was a good overview of that.
Yeah.
And then a question we get often for this full-time program, people are wondering, are the people going to be able to do like internships on top of what you're doing kind of day to day in the school? And if not, why is that probably, just not going to fit in with the kind of demands of this program?
Uh, you know, um, yeah, most likely the program is so hard in terms of time management, and George and I actually are actively working on that. An internship is a learning experience, right? And we feel that our classes are your learning experience. And so when and I was while I was bragging on the professors before, you're going to work with people who are connected to people in this industry. The other thing about an internship is you're trying to get your foot in the door, right? If you go to Columbia, your foot is full, your foot, ankle, knee, thigh, it's in the door, right? And so your professors are going to be connecting you to those folks. That said, if you're there's something for 5 hours a week, I've known students to do it. We don't promote that, and we don't, you are all adults, you can do what you want. But for the majority of students, the workload at the school is so intense that it behooves you to not do that. And at the same time, you're here to create work. This is not an academic exercise. So the more time that you can spend on your schoolwork, the better journalism you'll create. So there's a value in that as well.
I had a question. They wanted to know, in addition to what Du was saying about the cliche of I've always wanted to be a storyteller and not using that in your essay, are there any other things, pitfalls you see in applications that people should avoid?
Yeah, like random mistakes. Check your writing, right? Right, check your grammar, spell check. Those are things. Another one because with journalism, that accountability. We hold people to account, but how can people trust us if we can't spell or have poor grammar or make mistakes? Also, keep up with the news. You should be reading the news all the time. You do not have to be, a trivia God that knows like the third ambassador to Thailand from Ukraine. You don't have to have that kind of depth of knowledge, but you should really know what's going on in the world. And that's a part of what George was saying before, the curiosity piece. If you can't demonstrate that you know what's going on in the world, that's not going to happen. And there is a kind of a section of the application that will test your knowledge. Again, it's not going to be granular. It's not we're not these are not gotcha questions where do you know who the mayor of Des Moines is. None of that, right? What we want is like to get a feeling that you understand, you're interested in the news, you keep up with the news, you read regularly, you watch regularly. That's the thing. And if we can't detect that, that's pretty much a non-starter for us.
And do I think another just thing to follow up on is you mentioned earlier about like kind of exploring what reporting is. Why is it important for applicants to this program to be really like kind of knowledgeable about kind of what this will entail? Because it's a very reporting heavy program.
Yeah, our pre two previous deans ago, Nick Lemon, who's also on faculty, he would joke that if he had to change rebrand the school, it would be the Graduate School of Reporting. If it wasn't journalism, it was reporting. And so the reason is it's basically when you want that's all we do, right? Reporting is finding information, it's finding sources, finding people, finding and verifying that information, finding data sets, finding that obscure fact or getting access to that one person in the mayor's office. So that's all what reporting is, and that's at the heart of what we do. It's kind of like, if you wanted to be a mathematician, but you didn't know what arithmetic was, that wouldn't make sense. And that's what journalism is about. So that's foundational. Now, do you have to be a reporter? Let me be clear. No, that's why you're going to school, but you have to have an understanding of what the discipline is, right? And so what journalism isn't is that, what? I have some feelings. I have some feelings about this situation, and I'm going to tell you my feelings. That's not journalism. It's valid, and there's forms where you can execute that, but that's not what we do. Journalism is I'm going to find some facts and then educate you on a very important topic, and that's what reporting is. And so that's why it's so important that you have to have a clear sense of what you're getting into if you go to the journalism school. Now that let me go back to my other point, right? Reporting is not only valuable for journalism. In any industry you go into, the people who can find the information, who can articulate the information, they're the important ones. They're the leaders in whatever kind of place you're in. So think of it that way. And that's the advice that again, we'll teach you it, but you got to have an understanding of what it is.
Great. And I think we have time for one more question. And actually, for Tamia, someone was interested in the magazine class you mentioned earlier, the magazine workshop, and kind of learning about how you learn magazine writing and development here, and how that kind of has stayed abreast of changes in the field too. I know there's been a digital version of that as well as a print one, but can you talk a bit about what you kind of learn in that class?
Definitely. So, in that class, my professor was Keith Gesson. He is a writer for the New Yorker. So I feel like there's like no better place to learn about magazine journalism than with someone who works in that environment. A lot of the reporting that we did, we kind of fell under the same structure that they do at the New Yorker, the way that we pursued our reporting and entered every section of our story was following that same kind of path that he does as a reporter there. And one of the things that I really liked about that class too is that they had us take our own photographs for our stories. So we learned how to tell our stories both with images and with our words. And again, magazine journalism is something that does give you a little bit more creative flexibility. The writing can be a bit more like fluffy and kind of engaging in a different type of way than harder print reporting. So I really did like that opportunity to experiment in a new way. And I don't think they focus on climate reporting every year. They'll kind of switch up the subject, but you will learn how to do long form reporting in a really thoughtful way, expanding your kind of source catalog, the people that you speak to. And for that story, I spoke with a family that was based in upstate New York. So I got to do a lot of engaging with them both virtually and in person. So that was really beneficial.
Thank you. So I think we are going to wrap up since we are hitting the end of the hour, but thank you so much for your questions, everyone. If we didn't get to your questions, please come to our Meet With Us link. You can join a drop-in session with our team and we can talk more in detail about specific things you want to know more about when it comes to the application. And check out our YouTube page as I put the link there for our MS documentary and MS investigative specialization webinars we just had last week, so you can review those if you're curious about them. And to continue our conversation, as I mentioned earlier, 2 months until the application is due for the MS program this cycle. So lots of time to hopefully take in the advice from Tamia, George, and Do about kind of what goes into a strong application, and to encourage you to also just explore our school online and learn more about us too. And we're happy to continue the conversation in our drop-in sessions and Friday sessions too to hear more about your concerns, questions about what program might be the right fit for you. But thanks again. Thank you to Tamia. Thank you to George. Thank you to Du. This has been a really great, insightful conversation. And thank you again to everyone who tuned in from all over the world today to learn more about the MS. And we'll hopefully be in touch soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.